Hello everybody, it's me, producer Ross, and welcome to another video on Kings of Anglia. Today I'm joined by good old Brad. It's now been 10 years since Paul Jewell was appointed manager at Town. Of course, his time at the club was not very good. So Brad, we're going to be ranking from worst to best his 30 signings he made. Yes, 30. A lot of them were loans, a lot of them were freebies. Some of them were actually a bit of cash was spent. Although they didn't do so well, did they? So let's get into worst and the best signings. So starting off with the worst, Brad has ranked these players and he's started with Paul Taylor. He's the worst of the bunch. Why is that then, Brad?
Well, I think it's pretty simply the fee and the output from that fee. 1.5 million was it? Came with so much promise from Peterborough earlier in the season, I think, or maybe it was the season before. He tore us apart, didn't he, in the 7-1 spanking. And when he came, we were hoping to get George Boyd with him, but that fell through, and we were left with Paul Taylor. We thought, okay, see how he is, and yeah, I don't really need to say a lot more. I mean, a lot's been said about his time at the club, his off-the-field issues, his on the pitch contribution. It's just shocking. Yeah, so he's the worst.
Number 29 in the list is Nathan Ellington. Of course, experienced striker. He's scored goals at different clubs, but during his time at Town, not so good.
No, probably the worst striker I've seen at the club. Yeah, I'm getting on for. I'm 26 now, and seen quite a few of my time since early days onwards. But yeah, I've got it wrote down here: 17 appearances, 0 goals. Was just an absolute donkey, pretty much.
Next up is another random loan signing, the first of the loans in this list. BL Mosney on loan from Southend. Just a random signing, weren't he?
Yeah, it was bizarre. I mean, I think he went on trial at West Ham, didn't he? As well as us, and at the end of it, we didn't want him, and he said, "Well, you can either sign me or I'll go." And we said no. But then a week later, we actually had him, sign him from lower league, Southend on loan, which was just a really strange sign at the time. It's just a comedy factor as well, because we had so many loans in the squad. If I remember, we couldn't actually get him in the squad because we had so many loans in the pitch already. So he didn't play. It was just a bizarre signing. I think the times which he did play, he got sent off. So is number 28, but quite a comical character as well. He was.
So next up is a player that didn't actually play a game for Town. He was a free agent signing from Italian side Genoa, and well, his name is Chet Kamara. Bad, really. He didn't play a game.
Yeah, it shows how bad I rate the other three below them to put him below a guy who didn't play a single game. But he arrived on a free transfer and was a youngster. So I can't really say anything more than that. He just didn't play a game.
Next up is, well, another player that wasn't so good. NIGEL REO-COKER, of course, had a good career in the Premier League. Well, somewhat good. And when he signed for us, wow, it was bad, wasn't he?
Well, he was so poor. A really experienced midfielder, captained West Ham in the Premier League, had been at Aston Villa as well, and a good professional he was. And he came there and just at the tail end of his career, it was just woeful. Like, you were expecting to get a player who was experienced and could sort of lead the side. I was actually expecting him when he signed to become captain quite shortly after that, but it was just another poor signing, unfortunately.
Next up is another loan player from Man City, Reece Wabara. He had a brief spell here on loan, didn't play many games, but
yeah, he came with quite a bit of promise. Being a Man City loanee, you would, and yeah, we were expecting quite big things from him, but it didn't really materialise. I think Carlos Edwards mainly was our right back, wasn't he, at that time, and barely got a kick. So I mean, we're mentioning players here who keep going up and up and up, and they're barely even playing a game. So there's a lot of signings which were just dud signings for Ipswich Town in this era.
So up next is a club legend. It's Richard Wright making his third spell at Town. Of course, the glory years under George Burley, then came back for his second spell under Jim Magilton and Roy Keane. then went to Sheffield United, then returned not soon after that, really, and making that one appearance with Paul Jewell. Once again, legend of the club, but very much at the end of his career.
Exactly, just one appearance. I looked it up, and I'd actually got mixed up. I got mixed up with 3 years earlier, and I had him quite high in my rankings, and then realised, that was under Magilton that he played all them games for. So only one appearance this time. But yeah, the first goalkeeper for Town that I watched, brilliant keeper. You could see he was going to go on and do big things, even as little 8-year-old me could see he was going to be an England player one day. But yeah, he was back at the club when Paul Jewell was bringing back the guys of old like Kieran Dyer and that, wasn't he? And trying to reunite the fan base in a way after Keane, I think he was. But yeah, just one appearance for him.
The number 23 is IVAR INGIMARSSON, another random signing on a free transfer. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually thought at the time, free transfer for another solid centre half. But we were trying to bring in solid experienced professionals, weren't they? But yeah, I thought with his time at Reading, he had a pretty good career. Came to us and just lost all the ability in the world to defend. He made IBRAHIMA look good. So that's all I can say.
I'm sure we're going to mention him later on. And up next is Kieran Dyer, rolling back the 90s with signing him on loan, of course, from West Ham. Of course, injuries have plagued his career. So in a way, a dream return. You know, Kieran Dyer at the end of his career, fortunately, made only a few appearances. And yeah, what else can you say, really?
Yeah, I've actually got him this high, but it'd probably be lower in some because he barely played. He only played 4 games, but I've got him this high personally because I never got to see him play for Town. I arrived just a tiny bit late. So it was nice to see this guy come back that everyone had been waxing lyrical about. Family had just had been watching him play those years at Town and seen him progress. I remember seeing him at Newcastle, and yeah, I enjoyed watching him at Town again, even for those few appearances. And it was good to see him back. But yeah, it's just a shame he didn't live up to what. Well, he was injury plagued, wasn't he? He had so many injuries, bless him. But it was great to see him back in the Town shirt anyway.
Next up is a man named after a big aeroplane. It's J. Emmanuel Thomas, signing from Arsenal. Once again, you know, in a way, an exciting signing. Money spent on him. You know, a player for big things. Then at Town, had a few step overs, but that was really it.
Yeah, he was an enigma, I think they'd say. He was box office, wasn't he? I mean, I kind of just in a few of those games, just looking forward just to seeing what Jet did, good or bad. I'll never forget his track and back against Middlesbrough at home. I think it was Middlesbrough, where he just literally ran the length of the pitch to get back, make this outrageous slide and tackle. Moments after being absolutely slated by everybody for just looking so lazy. He's that kind of character. Like someone would just he'd flick a switch and it'd go from 0 to 100. But he scored some good goals. The West Ham game 5-1 at home brings good memories. But yeah, just another player which sadly didn't live up to the hype. I thought we'd got a real coup at the time. He'd been on loan at Cardiff a year before that, and I thought we're getting a proper player here, Arsenal youngster. But didn't work out. None of these really did.
Number 20 is the first goalkeeper on the list, and this one is actually a permanent signing, not actually a loan, because we have a lot of loans in this list as well who are goalkeepers. But this is Scott Loach, signing from Watford. A boyhood fan. You know, he was actually at the club as a youngster. Unfortunately, didn't do as well as we were hoping he was going to do.
Yeah, another solid Championship keeper who he signed. And it was a bit of a homecoming, wasn't it? Like you say, big Town fan. Another one which didn't quite reach expectation. A few of these are probably further down my list because they didn't reach the expectations I had of them. And I expected him to be better than he was. Didn't command his area very well. A couple of decent saves I remember him making, but he was just all right at everything without being great at anything in a way, if that makes any sense. And yeah, we later got keepers in on loan, and he was just sitting on the bench. Felt sorry for him because it was his homecoming, wasn't it? He loved being at Town at that time, big Town fan. it's a shame it didn't work out.
The next up is a young signing, a man from Macclesfield. It's Elliot Hewitt. In a way, a player that, you know, you would hope to progress and do well. Fortunately, he showed some sort of ability, but then had injuries and just didn't really do that well. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he was a similar sort of signing as to what he tried to bring in Cresswell, but this one just didn't really work out. Young fullback, even played under Mick a couple of times. Yeah, he worked hard. He was half decent player, but just not quite good enough. It was just another one, unfortunately. The right type of signing, but just didn't work out.
Now, we've mentioned Kieran Dyer already in this list. Now, Lee Bowyer, of course, they're famous for that fight. Lee Bowyer, of course, joined Town at the end of his career, pretty much. Of course, had a very good Premier League career, playing for the likes of Leeds, West Ham, Newcastle, of course. And, you know, we've got memories of that one goal, that late goal he scored, but very much at the end of his career.
Yeah, just insert what I said for Nigel REO-COKER, really. Just that Lee Bowyer was just a little bit better. I do have a horrible memory of him, though. That's not that fight. It was him playing in the midfield diamond with Andrews, Bullard, and I think it might have even been REO-COKER. Yeah, that was just horrible at that time. Just seeing those four like 30-plus-year-olds playing in the diamond and being stretched all over the pitch. That weren't his fault, but but yeah, just another player which you wanted. You're expecting better than what you got. Tail end of his career. There was a lot of them that time that came like that.
So up next is another loan player, this time from Spurs, Massimo Luongo. Another exciting sort of loan, really. And, you know, we've had a lot of loans from the Premier League before. And he wasn't that bad, was he?
Yeah, he was a good little player. He did spray the ball about nicely. I didn't expect him to go on to the career he had. I thought he was a neat and tidy little player, but he lacked a lot of physical attributes. But he developed them and has had a really good career. He was brilliant at QPR, and I thought at one stage he was going to go to the Premier League. But with us, we were just seeing the start of him, and that was at a time of the time of Paul Jewell, weren't it? I mean, if he was in there with Mick, sort of like a solid manager who could take him on and had a clear playing style. I mean, under Jewell there was not really anything, was there? And he was just sort of dropped in, and yeah, I can't really say too much on him because we didn't see him at his best. But yeah, he was a good little player to watch.
So next up is a player that I'm actually surprised to see actually very high on this list, and it's Ryan Stevenson, of course, signed from Hearts for not much money at all. Any reason why he's high up? Of course, that goal against Doncaster, what about her? But there's nothing else really to add. Yeah,
he weren't great, but I don't think I've seen too many players work as hard as him. He worked his absolute arse off, that bloke. Yeah, like you say, he came down from Hearts. We didn't expect anything. Got him for absolute peanuts. And yeah, but just the work rate of the lad. And he was all right on the ball, but he wasn't exactly great. But just for what we paid and what we got, that's why he's at number 16 on my list.
So number 15 is the first lone goalkeeper on this, because we have a lot of lone goalkeepers during Paul Jewell's reign. And it's Alex McCarthy on loan from Reading. Played a few times, got sent off as well in one game, I can remember. But yes, why is he number 15?
Yeah, decent keeper. Put in some good performances. Was probably, at that time, if I remember, better than any other player in our squad, even though he was a goalkeeper. It sounds funny saying that, but the games that he played, he was a good keeper. And another, well, we'll get on to him, but just one of a few loan goalkeepers I wish we'd sign permanently.
So up next is somewhat of a cult hero, you can sort of say, IBRAHIMA SONKO, of course, signing from Stoke. Just been playing in the Premier League for the last few seasons, signing as a free agent, played 22 games in total. And yeah, what's your memories of him? And, you know, is he high up the list because he had his moments?
Yeah, exactly. Superman. That's what I remember him as. It just, I remember him rising up for this corner, which he absolutely buried a header once. That was a brilliant moment, because he was just one of those players who was just a bit of a cult figure. Just hilarious to watch at times. He'd just do something absolutely ridiculous one minute, and then he'd be brilliant for like a couple of games. And you think, bloody hell. He even captained the club, didn't he? I think he was captain as well for a little bit. I think he gets this high just because of his comedy factor. But he did put in some good performances, to be fair to him.
Next up is a player that was, once again, money was spent on him, and it started so well for Michael Chopra. 2 goals on his debut and 14 goals in all competitions in his first season. But then, of course, his issues and other things come into play. He's high-ish up on your list. Is it because of that? He's a goal scorer.
Yeah, he's high on my list because when you actually look at it, he got 18 goals in 78 games. That's not what you wanted from him, obviously, but that's why he makes that high on the list. He's higher than people with 4 appearances, 0 goals. But yeah, he came with I was absolutely buzzing when he signed. I really was. On this list, I'm looking down at it and I'm hand up it and seeing he's by far the most excited I was over a signing. I thought we were getting the top striker of the championship, and essentially we were. We all thought we were. And the first season, he was pretty all right. I mean, I think if he would have had more of a solid base behind him and players who could create for him, then he might have been even better. Not saying that he was good, but he was a little bit of a hope in that first season anyway. And then it just tailed off, like you say, with his off-the-field issues.
So next up is the first permanent signing that Paul Jewell made, and it's Andy Drury, coming from non-league, Luton Town, where he was playing. And, a big jump for him coming from non-league football. And he did okay. It was 150k in total, his fee.
Yeah, he did okay, didn't he? He played quite a few games for us, actually. I was surprised how many games he actually played. But was a hard worker, half decent, not quite good enough. I mean, when you go back, we're at a time, we always are at a time with any football club, any fan, you want to get promoted. And when you're not getting promoted and when you're seeing players who aren't good enough to take you there, you just kind of accept it. And yeah, I mean, he was all right, Andy Drury, and he came for that little money, didn't he? Played quite a few games for us. But yeah, that's why he's there on my list. And he had a good career, actually.
So here is another short-term loan signing. Richie Wellens, coming from Leicester City, plays 7 games in total. Why is he this high on your list?
Because I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was absolutely brilliant when he signed. He was what I've been saying, the experienced professional who came in and was able to just sort of just come into it on his own and just grab players up from playing poorly and just drag them, almost like the Gillen used to, just drag everyone up a level with him. And for those 7 games that he played, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Gutted he didn't sign permanently. He weren't playing at Leicester at the time, although I think he had an injury. He'd had a good career at Leicester as well. So I was excited when we signed him. Really did play well for us. And he also went through a time with us where PJ was just being sacked, and I think Mick McCarthy was coming in, and Mick was desperate to keep him, but Leicester weren't having it. He was too good. Good player. Looks like he's going to be a good manager.
So it's time to look at the 10 best. We're starting off with good old GUIRANE Endor, signing on loan from French side St Etienne. What a random sign this was, and he was a bit of a beast in midfield, wasn't he? He was just a big midfielder.
Falls into the cult hero bracket, I think, with SONKO. Yeah, he was just an absolute unit. He wasn't particularly that good. I remember him playing alongside Hyam, and God, when you look back, you think that was our midfield too under Jewell at one point, and Mick. I think Mick had that in his first season, didn't he? Endor. But yeah, just a random signing who we all kind of had a soft spot for.
So number 9 is Danny Collins, on loan from Stoke City, playing in the Premier League for the last, pretty much all of his career, because he had that spell at Chester in non-league and League 2. But coming on loan, and he did all right, didn't he?
Yeah, decent centre-half at a time where our centre-halves were poor, like seriously poor. So he was a massive upgrade on them. Scored a couple of goals as well, which, really good headers, I remember. And he was just a really good, solid player. Too good for us at that time.
So up next is a man who actually had got a bad career at Town. Of course, after the Paul Jewell era, of course, a man who then signed under Roy Keane, firstly on loan, Then Paul Jewell signed him twice on loan, and it is Daryl Murphy I'm talking about, a man who, well, was at Celtic when he signed on loan, which in a way that's a big signing, really,
Yeah.
signing on loan. So for you, during his time under Paul Jewell, it wasn't great, was it?
No, under Paul Jewell, yeah, that's why he's down at number 8. If I did this under Mick, he'd probably be number 1 or 2. But under Jewell, he was playing left wing, wasn't he? Under Keane, he brought him in, and I think he played up front with David Healy, and they had quite a decent partnership. And we were very excited when we got Murphy back on loan again under Jewell, but he was stuck out on the left wing. And yeah, he did what he could there. He was half decent, got quite a few goals. And then in PJ's last season, Mick then took over, and then yeah, Murphy started playing up front, didn't he? So in a way, I think you got to kind of thank Jewell for bringing him back on loan, keep bringing him back on loan, getting that love for the club with Murph, because he had a brilliant end of his career at Ipswich, didn't he? Because he did sign for us when he was like 30, didn't he? So yeah, that's why he's that low down. Probably get a few pelters for that, but he didn't play in his best position for Town under Jewell.
So the 2 next players on this list are 2 goalkeepers. First in number 7 spot is Stephen Henderson. What can you remember of him? He wasn't a bad keeper, weren't he?
Good keeper. Same sort of things as what I said with Alex McCarthy. Keeper I wish we'd signed, and he's just a really good keeper. I can't really say a lot more than that, other than that there was one man above him who I thought was a little bit better, who I wanted leaving a little bit more.
And yes, of course, we're going to mention now it's David Stockdale, another lone goalkeeper coming from Fulham, and another goalkeeper that would love to sign permanently, but it was just never going to be able to afford him, were we?
No, he was brilliant for us. Single-handedly kept us in a lot of games under Jewell. Yeah, fantastic keeper at that time. I knew quite a bit about him already because my brothers are weirdly Fulham fans. So I knew quite a lot of him and how highly they rated him. And I loved his kicking more than anything, how he could just literally drop it out the side and just pick out anyone on the pitch. Vocal, great shot stopper. What some saves that he made were unbelievable. And yeah, that's why he's up here on my list.
Into the Fab 5 somewhat, starting off with Jimmy Bullard. His loan spell was very memorable. His permanent spell, not so much. Of course, scored on his debut, and in a way, for us, an exciting signing, a character and a player that's been playing in the Premier League for a while.
Yeah, massive impact when he came in. And yeah, those 2 goals at Cardiff, I'll never forget. Absolute streamer. What a goal that was. And he scored some brilliant goals for us, didn't he? Even in the 5-1 defeat against Norwich, which I won't going to mention, but it's the best goal of that game, you could say that. Yeah, but he was a bit of a cult hero again, but then went from hero to zero when he signed permanently and just looked more happy just to sit on the bench each week and not really do anything when he came on. But yeah, at the time, when we were poor, he added a bit of life. Kids were wearing Jimmy Bullard wigs and created a bit of fanfare around the ground, didn't he?
Okay, so number 4 is a man who came on loan from QPR. 10 goals in 17 games. Not a bad return. Player that, though, we were never going to sign permanently. But DJ Campbell, what a man. What a striker.
Yeah, what an impact. Yeah, fantastic. Start to his, well, can't really say Town career. He's only played 17 games. Wish he would have signed permanently. Carried it on into the Mick McCarthy start of his era. And basically dragged us up from bottom of the league, didn't he? So yeah, it was a hell of a sign at a time when we were desperate, and to get the return that he did, pretty much with nothing behind him, no creativity whatsoever, and somehow got 10 goals. So yeah, that's pretty good credit to him really that he was able to do that.
So sitting at number 3 is Keith Andrews, another lone player from the Premier League coming from Blackburn, and a person who loved to score goals as well. 9 goals in 20 games during his spell at the club. Another player would love to sign permanently. Once again, probably wages, the fee. It was never going to happen. But Keith Andrews, not a bad spell at Town.
Yeah, it gets my top loan player. Just edged it over DJ Campbell, probably because I just weren't expecting anywhere near his goal return. He was a holding midfielder, and he was scoring streamers nearly every week, weren't he? And yeah, he was not a bad player, but I think if he weren't have scored those goals, he'd been a lot lower down on my list, because he was getting on a bit for a professional footballer anyway, and he didn't really do a hell of a lot in games, if I remember, but he just come up with match winners or just 30-yard streamers.
So missing out on the best Paul Jewell signing is a man who's the only survivor of the Paul Jewell signings in 2012, and it's Luke Chambers, the town skipper, now in the top 10 appearance makers, and, well, he, of course, was part of the relegation team of the 2018-19 season. But it is Luke Chambers, and, you know, a great servant at the club.
Yeah, I think we've focused before on Luke's time at the club in a whole, but yeah, if I focus on his time when he signed under Jewell, I thought it was a really good signing. He was Forest captain. Yeah, he'd ran his contract down, but we were getting an experienced centre half. But so many have talked about us wanting to get this season in like a 26-year-old sort of centre half, experienced player, leader, and that's what we got at that time. And yeah, he played well under Jewell, and I've said this before. I just remember his first appearance and thinking he's going to be captain. He's going to be captain of that football club, because he was just so loud. He was louder than anyone else in that football pitch. Just commanded everyone around him, and he's gone on to have, yeah, a hell of a career, really. I mean, in today's footballing world, you don't really expect players to be at a club for even 5 years, let alone 10. So yeah, credit to Luke, and yeah, the only one on this list that has survived that long, and yeah, well done.
So number one, and it's always going to be number one, the best signing Paul Jewell ever made, and what a signing it was. Coming from Tranmere Rovers, Aaron Cresswell, what a player he was. Very raw when he first signed, but then went on to score screamers, played really well at left back, probably one of our best left backs we've had in the last 20 years. Of course, gone on to play for West Ham in the Premier League multiple times. Actually won Cats for England as well, which is great to see. But obvious reason for you to be him for your top player.
Yeah, and you just said it there. My best left back of the last, well, from actually my time watching Town, the best left back I've seen at Ipswich. Yeah, what a signing. If I could, he'd be, like, I know there's 1, 2, 3, 4, but he'd be so much higher up there, because he's by far and away the best signing for Paul Jewell. Like you say, he scored goals. He was just a really good left back all around. Defensively, he was all right as well. He went great when he first started. Like you say, he had a few bits to improve on. But I just remember him coming in and just this wand of a left foot, crossing the ball, and the amount of goals he created for us, and just every time you used to see him get on that ball out on that touchline, and you just all sort of rise off the edge of your seat waiting for that cross to come in. And yeah, just a brilliant player, Cressy was. I was gutted when he left. I know Means did fill his shoes quite well, and a lot of people will probably hold Means in a higher regard. Maybe not that many people, but by far and away, Paul Jewell's best signing. Went and sold him for $3.5 million as well, didn't we? So yeah, well done, Jewell, on that one. That's probably the only one. Probably one of like 5 which I've rated highly, but yeah. So Cressy by far and away the best.
Definitely, I think a lot of people agree with you, and hope everyone's enjoyed this. Of course, a very long list of players. Some players you just never think you'll talk about ever again, but this is the video for it. The worst to best Paul Jewell signings ranked by good old Brad. I've just been here to just chuck him the names, basically. But Brad, thank you for joining me. Let us know in the comments down below if you agree with Brad's rankings. And yeah, that's it, guys. And once again, thanks for watching the video. I've been producer Ross, and I'll see you in the next one.